New Orleans, 1918. A city alive with jazz, culture, and thriving businesses. Italian immigrants ran small grocery stores, families sat on their porches in the humid southern air, and musicians filled Bourbon Street with the sound of trumpets and saxophones. But beneath the lively surface, something dark lurked in the shadows. It moved silently, unseen, waiting to strike, and when it did, it would leave an entire city trembling in terror. It was the early hours of May 23, 1918. The city was sleeping, but a figure in the darkness was very much awake. He moved through the streets without a sound, his long coat barely swaying as he approached his target. A small Italian-owned grocery store on Upper Line and Magnolia Street. Inside, Joseph Maggio and his wife Catherine lay in their bed, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Then with precision, the figure reached into his coat and pulled out a straight razor. He pressed it against the wooden doorframe and began carving away at the weak spot. Wood splinters fell to the floor as he chiseled a hole large enough to reach inside and unlock the door. He stepped inside. The house was still, silent. He took slow, measured steps toward the bedroom, his shadow stretching across the dimly lit hallway. The scent of old wood and candle wax filled the air. And then, without hesitation, he struck. The razor slashed across Joseph Maggio's throat in one quick, brutal motion. Blood sprayed against the wall as his body convulsed, his breath gurgling in his throat. He couldn't scream. His vocal cords had been severed. Catherine woke up just in time to see the dark figure looming over her. She gasped, but before she could move, the axe came down. 1, 2, 3 devastating blows. The sound of her skull splitting echoed through the silent house. And then, as quickly as he had arrived, the figure was gone. He left behind the bloodied axe, the razor, and an entire city about to awaken to a nightmare. The following morning, the streets of New Orleans buzzed with whispers. Neighbors gathered outside the Maggio home, their faces pale as police officers moved in and out. Inside, the crime scene was brutal. The wooden walls were streaked with dark splashes of blood. The bed was soaked in red. Detectives stood frozen, staring at the weapon left behind. A simple household axe, its handle covered in bloody fingerprints. There was no sign of forced entry. No valuables were stolen. Just death, swift and merciless. The police were baffled. Who would murder a well-liked, hard-working Italian couple? And why such brutality? They had no leads, no witnesses, only a signature, the razor and the axe. Then came the second murder. It wasn't an isolated incident. The Maggios were only the beginning. Over the next few months, the Axeman would strike again and again. The city held its breath, knowing it was only a matter of time before the next victim fell. In June, grocer Louis Bessumer and his mistress Harriet Lowe were found in a pool of blood inside their bedroom. Harriet's face had been split open with an axe. Somehow she survived, but she would never be the same. She would later claim to have seen the attacker's face, but her memories were too clouded with pain. In August, a pregnant woman named Anna Schneider was attacked while she slept. The Axeman left her skull fractured and her bed soaked in blood. But, miraculously, she survived. Her unborn child remained unharmed. New Orleans was no longer just a city. It was a hunting ground. The police were helpless. The people were terrified. And then, the Axeman decided to speak. On March 13th, 1919, the local newspaper received a letter. The ink was bold. The words were chilling. It was signed, "The Axeman." They have never caught me, and they never will. I am not a human being, but a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians call the Axeman. And then came the most terrifying part. I will make a proposition. On Tuesday night, I will pass over the city. If every house has a jazz band playing, I will spare them. If not, I will send my axe upon them. A demon, a killer, a challenge. That night, jazz echoed through every street. Every house had music playing. People danced not for joy, but for survival. And the Axeman? He never struck. August 10, 1919. The Cordemelia family became the final victims. The father and daughter were butchered in their home. The mother, barely alive, could only say, "He had no face, I saw nothing but darkness." And just like that, the Axeman vanished. No arrests, no suspects, no answers, only fear and speculation. Was he a man, a demon, a mafia enforcer, or simply a ghost that walked among the living? Over a century later, the legend of the Axeman still lingers. His identity? Unknown. His motives? A mystery. But one thing remains certain. On quiet nights in New Orleans, some say you can still hear the sound of jazz playing, keeping the Axeman at bay.